That woman you fired yesterday for being late, she's on the front page of the morning paper. And now the entire city is talking about her. Those were the words that made Eric Marshall, the manager of Sunset Cafe, drop his coffee. It spilled all over his desk, but he didn't even flinch. He stared at the newspaper, eyes wide. The girl, her photo, right there, beneath a bold headline. But let me take you back. Back to how it all began. It was a Monday morning, the kind that's always a little heavier, a little colder, no matter the weather. The city buzzed to life, people rushing down sidewalks with half-buttoned coats and coffee in hand. At Sunset Cafe, a cozy corner shop nestled between office buildings, the aroma of cinnamon and espresso clung to the air. The cafe opened at 6 a.m. sharp, and by 6:01, there were already 5 customers in line. Eric, a tall man with pressed shirts and little patience, prided himself on punctuality. To him, being late was a sign of laziness. A sign of weakness. So when Lena Harper, a 23-year-old barista with tired eyes and a smile that never quite reached her face, walked in at 6:18 a.m., Eric didn't even wait for an explanation. "You're late again," he snapped, barely looking up. I know. I'm really sorry. My bus broke down and..." "You said that last week," Eric cut her off. "And the week before that." She opened her mouth to explain more, but he raised a hand. "That's it, Lena. I can't run a cafe where people show up when they feel like it. You're done. Grab your things." The entire room went silent. Even the hiss of the espresso machine seemed to pause. Lena's lips trembled slightly. She didn't argue. She just nodded, said, "I understand," and walked into the back room without another word. A coworker tried to speak up, but Eric silenced them with a glare. 5 minutes later, Lena walked out, her apron folded in her arms. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just smiled faintly at the others and stepped out into the rain. That should have been the end of it. But the next morning, Eric's assistant, Camille, rushed into his office, her face pale, holding a copy of the city paper. "You need to read this," she said, placing it on his desk. Eric glanced at it absently, until he saw the photo. It was Lena. Hair tied back. Wearing the same coat she wore every day. Beneath the photo. Young woman becomes local hero after saving 3 children from house fire. The article went on to explain how the night before, just hours after being fired, Lena had been on her way to her second job as a cleaner when she noticed smoke coming from a building. She didn't hesitate. She ran into the burning structure and pulled out 3 children who had been trapped in a bedroom. The fire department arrived minutes later, but if it hadn't been for Lena's courage, the children wouldn't have survived. She had no protective gear. No training. She just acted. Eric stared at the words, disbelief settling over him like a fog. She'd been late that morning, because she'd stayed up the entire night at the hospital with the kids. She had soot on her clothes when she came in. But he hadn't noticed. He hadn't cared to ask. He felt something crack inside his chest. Lena Harper lived in a 1-bedroom apartment on the rougher side of town. When Eric arrived that afternoon, flowers in hand, a small paper bag of baked goods from the cafe in the other, he didn't know what he was going to say. He knocked, and for a long time, there was no answer. Then the door creaked open. Lena stood there, looking surprised but not angry. "Mr. Marshall," she said quietly. "Why are you here?" Eric swallowed hard. "I came to apologize," he said. "I saw the paper. I saw what you did." She didn't say anything. "I didn't ask what you were going through," he continued. "I judged you based on time punches and not your character. I was wrong." Lena exhaled slowly and leaned against the doorway. "You know," she said softly, "most people just see the surface. You're late, you're lazy. You're quiet, you're rude. But nobody ever asks why. Eric nodded. I didn't ask. And I should've. He handed her the flowers, awkwardly. I wanted to offer you your job back. And more than that, I'd like to give you a raise. A promotion. Whatever it takes to make this right. She looked down at the flowers, her eyes misting. I can't come back, she said. Not because I'm angry. I'm trying to start something different now. Eric looked puzzled. What do you mean? I've had a lot of people come up to me since the paper. Asking if I'd talk to schools. Fire safety, first aid, courage. I don't know how, but I think maybe I can help people. Maybe I can teach them to look a little deeper. Eric smiled gently. You'll be great at that. She finally returned the smile. In the weeks that followed, Lena's story went viral. News stations picked it up. She was invited to speak at city council meetings, then schools, then national safety conferences. A small non-profit offered to fund her education. Donations poured in. Strangers wrote letters thanking her. Some called her a hero. Others just said she gave them hope. And Sunset Cafe? It saw a different kind of transformation. Eric changed. He started asking his staff how they were doing. He noticed when people looked tired. He added a policy allowing a 5-minute grace period for those using public transportation. He began a program that offered part-time employees access to counseling and housing support. He hired more people like Lena, quiet, struggling, but full of something bright inside. People noticed the difference. One day, almost a year later, Lena walked into Sunset Cafe again. Not as an employee, but as a guest. Eric was behind the counter and spotted her immediately. Lena, he called, a genuine smile spreading across his face. You came back. She chuckled. Just passing by. Thought I'd grab a cup of something warm. They sat by the window, and she told him about the kids she was helping. About how she was studying for a certification in emergency response. About the letters she still received, some from teenagers who said her story saved them from doing something drastic. You saved those kids from that fire, Eric said. But you saved a lot of others too. Including me. Lena looked at him, eyes soft. You saved yourself, Eric. You just had to wake up. He nodded. And outside, the rain began to fall again. But this time, it felt like renewal, not sorrow. Sometimes, the people we dismiss are carrying the greatest burdens. And sometimes, the ones who seem late or broken are the very ones holding the world together in quiet, selfless ways. All it takes to see them, is to ask. And that manager who fired her? He never made the same mistake again.